At some point, I thought about my funeral, actually. I just thought, this is too much. I feel that I should just give up and just die. My name is Ndung'u, and I work at Safaricom as a customer care representative. Started feeling fatigued, and I would really have heavy menses. I didn't understand. I just thought that this was just normal, so I didn't think of even going to a hospital or anything. And towards now the end of the year, that is on December, yeah, it was in December, the fatigue was really too much, and then I started having headaches, really severe headaches, coming from up here, I mean at the back of my head. So I would just kill the pain with better pain. I realized that on my arms and my thighs, I had some kind of bruises. I didn't take it seriously because of the way we were at home, as shags, you know, running up and down. We were having visitors at home, so I thought that it was probably work overload at home. Visited our physician back at work. He diagnosed me with anemia. He told me I don't have blood, and he suggested I go do an ultrasound, pap smear, and a blood test, suspecting that I had fibroids. So he told me that when I get time, I go for a checkup. So I got that time to go for a checkup that same week. I went to Nairobi Hospital. First of all, when I went to see the doctor and explained my issue, she sent me to the lab. She first told me that I should go and take a blood test just to get the blood count, and then a clotting test. I don't really remember the name, but it was just a test to ascertain how long does my blood take to clot. So that is just what I did. I went, and then she told me to go and get an ultrasound because the other doctor had suggested that, though she didn't see the need for that at that specific time. So when I went to the lab for like around after 1 hour, I was already done with the test, with the blood test and the clotting. So I had gone to the radio section so that I could get the ultrasound. So while I was there, they called me, the hospital called me and asked me where I am. What am I doing? Where am I? So I didn't know that the test, the results were already out, and they were already talking to the doctor, telling her that I was really in bad condition and I shouldn't be just walking around the hospital. So they came for me and took me to the casualty and told me that they are going to admit me because my blood count is really low. It's at 6. The platelets are really down. They told me they are at 33. So, and they are supposed to be like around 150 and above. So they told me they are admitting me because of that, not really because of leukemia. So they didn't tell me about leukemia at that time. So they just admitted me to the hospital and then told me that there's a doctor who is going to come in the morning the following day. So that's how I got admitted. The following day, that's when the doctor came. He's called Professor Abinya, and told me the test that I was going to take so that they could really establish what was wrong with me. Him being in that field for a very long time, I'm sure that he really had an idea what was going on with me, but he couldn't tell me. So after the following day, that was on Monday, that is when I did a biopsy, a bone marrow biopsy. And then after that, after 3 days, I was in a room and he came in with a nurse and he sat down and he really asked me a lot of questions about me, my life, my job, my family. Do I have a family? How has anyone else gone through the same thing in our family? And I told him no. Do you drink? No. how is your job? Are you stressed up? And all those questions. And then he told me there's a treatment that you're going to do, and it's going to be a bit hard on you, but after the treatment you will be okay. He really described it as a tough one. And then I asked him, what kind of a treatment are you talking about, doctor? And he told me, you're going to do chemotherapy. Now me, I knew chemotherapy was for cancer patients. I had not really researched about cancer and all that. I had not. Cancer was not anywhere in my mind. So when the doctor told me, you're going to do chemotherapy, I told him, but chemotherapy is for cancer patients. Why am I doing chemotherapy? Do I have cancer? And he told me, yes, you have cancer, and it's in the blood. And he went silent, and I stood up. I was seated on the bed. I stood up, and I was saying, no, how do I have cancer? I stood up. What I remember, I don't really remember what transpired at that time, because I think too much transpired and too much was going on in my head, and I don't even know what was going on in my head. But I stood up and walked to a corner, and I sat down at the corner and held my head, and I started crying and shouting and asking him, how do I have cancer? So in my mind I was like, what have I done? What have I not done so that I can be diagnosed with cancer? Because in my mind I was right with God. I had grown up with a Christian family. My mom and dad are Christians. I am born again. I was like, this should not be happening to me. How can I be having such a disease? So I really cried, and he told me, you really need to calm down because we need to manage your situation. That time the doctor came and told me that we cannot keep on dilly-dallying with your health, and you're still sick. You're still getting sicker each and every day. And in a few days, if we don't do this treatment, we're going to be speaking of something else. So I decided, yeah, let me do the treatment. I, of course, talked to my family and all that. First, they did like a minor surgery on me, on my neck, because they needed to insert a central line where they could administer the chemo. So the first day of chemo, they used 2 drugs. So the first drug was running for like 2 hours. Then the other drug was running for 21 hours. I didn't know it was really going to be that hard on me, so I really got sick. My skin started changing the color. I became black. It started peeling off. The hair started falling off. My hair started falling off, and I had mouth sores, really severe ones. I wouldn't even be able to open my mouth and probably brush. I got nausea and vomiting, and I really got sick. When you do chemo, it destroys the bone marrow. Because I didn't have platelets, I also started bleeding. I was really bleeding, and the doctor had to give me some drugs so that it could stop now the bleeding. At some point, my platelets came down to 3, and the blood came down to 5 or 4. I was isolated. People couldn't come to see me, and if one would come to see me, they had to put on masks, and they wouldn't really spend so much time. People would just come next to my bed and they would cry, and because they thought I was going to die. I also don't, I can't say that, I can't judge them, because I really looked like someone who was going to die. Yes. The first chemo was for 7 days, and then I stayed in the hospital for another 3 weeks. So it was like around 1 month. That's when I stayed in hospital, and then I was discharged after the first chemo, and the doctor told me that after 21 days, I have to go back to the hospital. I didn't know I was going back for another chemo session. 7 days after the chemo, that's when he came in and did a biopsy, and then after that, he told me, when he was discharging me, that is when he told me that I didn't see any cancer cells, but you have to clear, you have to do all the chemo sessions because there could be a relapse. I did 4 chemo sessions. The first one ran for 7 days, the others were running for 5 days. So after the second one, I still did another bone marrow biopsy, and then still said that the results are okay. I didn't do any other bone marrow biopsy, but the doctor insisted I keep doing blood counts. There's so many tests I did after 4 sessions, established that I was okay. I was at home, so the doctor called me and told me the results are out, you're okay, the bone marrow is clear, you don't have any cancer cells. That is what he told me. I was happy. I was really happy. I told my mom, I shared the news with my mom. We celebrated, we thanked God because all this was made possible by God. We really thanked God, and I was really happy to be declared cancer-free. During the first chemo, I wasn't really thinking about anything. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just there. But during the other chemo sessions, I would get to a point where I would think, or maybe I'm going to die. I would think about my funeral. I would think how they are going to hold it, how people probably are going to attend, where they are going to hold it, and all that. At some point, I thought about my funeral, actually. I just thought, this is too much. I feel that I should just give up and just die because it was really painful. I started being positive. I started having faith. I really had faith that I wasn't going to die, that I was going to live. I started being positive and claiming that I was going to live and not die. This experience has taught me is that it's not that cancer is a death sentence. It isn't, because I am here, I'm alive, I am free. This really, I don't know how I would call it, but I would say that as you're doing treatment, for anyone, as you're doing treatment, also believe and have a positive mind, because so many people die. Some of them die because they have given up. I mean, I've already given up. It's too hard on me, so let me just give up. Don't give up. Cancer has taught me that there is nothing that is impossible to God. Everything is possible because I was sick and I am free now, and I believe in God's healing. When people hear of the name cancer, they start making their statements like, now this is the end of you. But that is not the end of you. There are so many survivors. I'm not the only survivor. There are so many people who have been declared cancer-free. And it's possible to be cured and be free and completely free. And when you're free, live positively. Live positively. Believe that it's gone. Don't live with fear. I don't live with fear that is going to come back, because I believe in complete healing. Above all, believe in God, because even doctors say that we treat but God heals. So they have acknowledged that theirs is to administer the treatment, but it's for God to heal you. So it's possible to be treated and be cured and be healed completely of cancer.